Welcome to Sunday service, where we dig deep at the heart of what it means to be a man in today's world. Today, we're continuing our journey through Wild at Heart, a powerful exploration of the warrior spirit that lives within each of us. We're diving into the battle that God, all warrior, has designed to fight, a battle that's intended for us to truly live and become the men we're meant to be. This isn't just about surviving; it's about thriving, conquering, and finding our true purpose to fight. I'm your host, John Martinez. I'll be joined by my host, Nathan Olachea, my brother, for the Good Leader brand, the Good Leader podcast, and this is our Sunday service episode. Hope you enjoy it.
All right. Hey everyone. Like my brother said, today's discussion, today's topic, we're still going through Wild at Heart, as you already mentioned. It's a great book by John Eldredge. He wrote it back in the 90s, and it is very much still pertinent today to all men who feel like are lacking something within them, that they haven't reclaimed their masculinity or they are in desperate need of it. And so the ultimate man, the ultimate warrior, God the Father, he is the one that we are created in after his image, and so it'd only be right that we also have his warrior heart. Um, and so, we already said, God is the one who created us, and so He created us as men, as warriors who desperately need a battle to fight. That is where our purpose is, and we are constantly facing adversity, whether it be within the home, at work, in the world, within ourselves. And Peter, he writes in First Peter chapter 5, verse 8 through 9, he tells us who the villain of our story is, that we are in constant battle with for the rest of our lives. He says, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering." And so, if you were, say, out there camping and you happen to have a bear come across your camp, you're not going to send the really nice guy to go fight the bear, to go scare it off. Who knows if the really nice guy would even go do that in the first place? That's when you want the masculinity that people are telling you to fear. You want those guys to go out there. The guy who is willing to lay down his life for the group, who is willing to fight this thing to the death in order to protect those that he cares about. And so that's what we want to hit on today. Have we been emasculated in today's age, where we are told that we don't want men to be outspoken? We don't want men to be loud. We don't want men to be confident and brave. We want men to be nice guys. The guy who, is timid. He doesn't want to offend anyone. He's more concerned of what people in the workplace think about him, instead of sticking to his guns, his morals, his values that he might want. He doesn't want to upset HR at all. And I'm not saying go and make HR angry or anything. Don't do anything like that. Keep everything uh, morally correct. Um, but those are not the guys that you think of when you think of masculinity. When I think of masculinity, we've talked about it before. I think of Rocky Balboa. I think of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Predator. All those guys within his team, they're jacked. It's the 80s. They're all on steroids. And they're huge. And those guys are fighting an impossible battle out there. But that's what you think of. You think of that traditional masculinity. Um, and so the reason why we tend to think of those guys, they're the heroes in these movies and these books and whatnot. All heroes have a villain, and so that's what Peter is telling us. He's letting us know that we are the hero in our story, that we are the main character, but we have a villain. We have the prowling lion roaming around us, constantly looking for us to be unawares of what's going on in our lives, so that he can devour us. He doesn't want to just toy with you. He wants to kill you. He wants to eat you alive and spit you out. And by ourselves, we cannot do anything. And so that's why it's only through the power of Christ that strengthens us, that we have any chance of fighting against the wiles of the devil. We've been placed into a world at war, and we have a role to play in this unfolding story. So, as I mentioned, man needs a battle to fight, and this is the point that John Eldredge, the author of Wild at Heart, this is what he really hammers on, that we need a place for the warrior to come back alive in us. He needs to be lethal. He needs to be agile. He needs to be trained and seasoned. That way, he can protect not only himself but others who rely on him. Who he can also mentor others who might not know what it means to be that warrior. And we also need to learn the meaning of true masculinity. Um, he says that every man is a warrior, yet every man must choose to fight. And I think that's incredibly important right there. We are born warriors. It's within our hearts to fight, to not simply stand by and let people walk over us. But you can choose to let people do that if you do not choose to fight back. And so I'd like to through this podcast right now talk about the recovery of our warrior hearts and why is it is absolutely essential for us. And so the first question I want to pose to us is God set within every man a warrior heart. What is one way that you've seen this essential aspect of who you are impact your world for good? So I'd like to pose that to my brother first. With your warrior heart, and I know Gordo, you're a fighter. You're a leader. How have you seen that warrior heart, that warrior spirit within you, change the world around you for good?
I think that when you have that willing you to fight and you're also a good leader, I think that inspires other people to also um, feel capable of fighting, even if they at some point didn't. I was in a comment today, actually commented on it earlier on X, but a guy said they're talking about the assassination with, and they said that's unbelievable that he would just get up and raise his fist and people wouldn't run. I'm like, "It's not unbelievable because you gotta remember in a situation like that," I said, it's called fight or flight, right? When something happens to people, you either choose to fight or you choose to run. And
Mm,
when people believe in somebody or something enough and in leadership, they'll stand by with that leader, good or bad, and see what happens. I say it happens in combat, it happens in law enforcement, it, the fact that it happened at a rally and people didn't stampede, I think is because everybody was so that group is so I want to say that they're not perfect. Obviously, they're not perfect people, they're not trained combatants, but they're all in
yeah.
unison for one thing. So when they saw Trump go down and then kind of I think there was I think it showed actually of selflessness because they were more like, "We need to see what's going on," and caring about their families and obviously everyone around them. No one panicked.
Mm,
That's signs of good leadership, just an overall good message. I then the way that Trump got up and was obviously saying he didn't want to, and he was saying fight, and a lot of the comments were very negative, like, "Oh, no one would really do that." I said, my comment was just more not everybody's gonna cower in the face of opposition, whether you're gonna get killed or shot at or whatever. Not every man is gonna get shot at, fall to his knees and be like, "Oh, let me get out of here." Like I saw, you have to have that will to fight. That's why it's called the will. It has to come from your spirit within to want to fight, and it's not always easy, but you have to realize like they used to in the army, you see kind of jokes, right? Like if you run, you're gonna die scared. Like so, sometimes it's kind of like if I run, they're gonna shoot me. If I fight, at least I'm gonna go out fighting. So, what choice would you rather be? As a man, you have to decide that. I used to have this talk all the time with people that when I'm a field training officer, I'm like, you have to make the decision, not when you're at work, not when we're on patrol, not when something's happened. I always say, at night before you go to bed or with your loved ones, that I am willing um, to defend myself, defend someone I love, and defend other people, and do
mm,
what is necessary. If you make that decision, things become easier for you because you've already made that decision. But now, if you just are reacting to what's going on around you, most people fall to the level of training, which is insufficient. They lose the panic or don't do anything. I don't know how many times I saw people in high school and growing up get punched in the face, not fight back, because they thought by posturing or just acting that was going to make the person go away. And it doesn't. Me and Brandon and Eric had a whole conversation about this because in the group that we're in within friends, why me and him got along is because we both that we were not we didn't just talk about fighting. So we are both willing to fight. We saw each other get in fight. So we became close off that. Like we weren't not just talking about it, and that bonded us more. That even to this day, that we're still friends because we saw that in most groups of it could be men, women, whatever. Not everyone out of that group wants to be a fighter. You know what I mean? Or want to be the one to like fight, do things. They may fight like when it comes down to it, but you're gonna have to be pushed to a certain point to even do that. But when they see that you're not scared, I think it instills in other people not to be scared and to fight. And I mean it not just in a physical sense, but just in the sense of like this is wrong. Why is no one do anything about it? I used to pick it up a lot when I was a trainer. One of the it wasn't a study, but it was like something that they I think it was in Japan where they were kind of pushing people a lot in New York into studies, pushing them into front of the train tracks. And they always brought up that they noticed in a lot of the cases that if one person jumped on the tracks, helped the person get out, then other people would help.
Yeah.
And when no one did, then no one did. That person just, was there. So I think that that's even fighting, even though, it may not look like you're not necessarily beating up the person that did it, ran away or whatever, but you're not just gonna stand by and observe and like, oh man, the person's gonna die. Let me just watch it happen. You know what I mean? You're actually jumping in, participating. So I think that's in the world where we're different. You can't always sit back and just be an objective onlooker. What's
Mm.
and that's what I think I'm kind of pushing a lot um, on social media with the platform to get people to understand. Like, hey, I said I don't like politics. I really do not like politics. But I also don't like what I'm seeing from that's being pushed to our kids and getting pushed in a way where it's you like, hey, well, do I just sit back and watch it happen, or do I sit back
Mhm.
now, participate, and let my voice also be heard and get rally up other men who are like me? Because I think the way I look at it is like I feel like we're a little bit too silent for a long time. You know what I mean? Like I think there
Yeah.
was a silent majority of men that are like myself and you that have we kind of like politics is not really our thing, but it's kind of like now the world go after kids and family and some of the things they're gonna push is like you've made it our thing because you've overstepped your position. You know what I mean? Because now if
Yeah.
you're trying to you're you're coming you're creating an issue where there maybe before, not that there wasn't one, but you were never getting this involved in what our kids are being taught and other things like that. So that's kind of where I think where it comes out to the fighting with other men, to you can't just always be, a conscientious observer or I don't want to get involved. I honestly hate when guys would say that. Even at work, one of the things I didn't like was when trying to implement something, especially when I was like in and implementing changes in the department, and guys would complain about certain things not being done. But when you actually ask people to participate in making these changes happen, you get a
Mhm.
uh, sometimes complaining and nagging and whatever. But they want the change to happen, and then they have to understand like change doesn't happen. You just wishing upon a star that it does. You know what I mean? You actually have to go fight for it and make it happen. Take the steps to
Yeah.
make these things happen. So I think it plays a lot part in the world. I think it's like you either either I think it was a quote, so people that know what happened, people that are that don't know what happened. It's some kind of weird saying. I think I'm all jacked up. It's basically in that way of like you either are participating in what's going on or you're just like hearing about it when it happens. You have no say in what's going on, and that's like a lot of people are a little bit right now in the country. I think you have like the two different parties. You have some people in the middle, and you have some people that are not participating. But think it's kind of you. I think when you don't participate, and I think I was guilty of it too with politics for a long time, not participate. Then things kind of happen, and you're like, man, how did this happen? Then you kind of realize, well, to be a balanced, man, I need to be kind of, I need to know all facts and things that are going on. I need to pay attention more to some of this stuff and not get swept up in the emotion of it, but you need to know the information so that I kind of know what we're seeing and what's actually happening to our country and how did we even get to this point. That's
Yeah.
basically it. So yeah, it's a I think it plays a big role in a lot of things.
I like that you brought up the subway, and if somebody gets pushed onto it, like, if you don't see that one person go, the one person who took initiative, you see it a lot in videos that people won't
Yeah,
do anything. They'll simply just watch as someone
yeah,
gets crushed to death. And I think that comes from the lack of the tribe mentality that we have nowadays. So if you live in a small town versus New York City, one of the biggest cities in the entire world, a small town, you're going to be like, hey, that's Steven. He's in trouble. I need to go help him. I know him. I know his family. I might have grown up with him, or I know someone within his family. I'm going to help him out. But then you're in New York City, you're on the subway where millions of people go and pass through every day. You just kind of expect someone else because I don't know him. Someone's going to do something. Surely
yeah.
someone will call the cops. Um,
Mhm.
so and I like how you had also brought up that it's that mental preparation, knowing and making that decision beforehand, not in the moment. That, okay, if my house was on fire, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this. I'm getting out of the house. I'm getting my family. Whatever you need to do, whoever you live with, you're protecting them. The dog, the cat, you're grabbing them. You're getting out of there. Some people will freeze up and they sit there. You see it quite often. Whole families burned because they just didn't have a plan, or maybe they slept through, unfortunately. But it's
Yeah, that
incredibly
was
important to make those decisions prior to those events happening. Like, I make those mental decisions if I'm going somewhere uh, that I'm not used to. Like, if I'm going to a large concert, I'm like, okay, if something were to break out, a shooting, some sort of bio weapon, a terrorist attack, like, this is where I'm going. I let my friends know, hey, this is where we're meeting up. Uh, be there at this time, or even if it's just trying to leave so you're not catching traffic, just mentally preparing for any situation that could possibly happen.
yeah, that's a big part of it is just one of the things when I was a FTO, which is a field training officer, so I trained other police officers, was that I used to play, we used to the what if game, what if this happened, what if this happened. The thing is, people have to remember, no plan is perfect. Like things can always change, but at least if you have an idea of what you're trying to do, then it gives you your brain something to think about. Like honestly, every time I sit in church, I tell myself, okay, if someone walked in, it might be crazy to some people, but I'm like, if someone walked in with a gun, what would I do? And I'm like, I know, like just in my right now, right? I know three entrance ways that I know of from the church from the back. And I'm like, okay, well, if they come this way, how could I get to that person this fast? This, how can I get to this person? Like in my mind, I kind of played this game of like, well, what would I do? Like, what if, if they, do I have enough time to clear the distance between me and that person? And I'm not playing it because I'm just, I want to just be like a hero or something. It's more because I know that that happens. The more I plant this idea in my head to do something, the more likely I am to do something and to
Yeah,
have
to
a
follow.
sort of a plan of action. Picking up like, hey, I'm gonna have this chair, I'm gonna throw it at him. Like that's literally what you have to think like that to make actual so that when it happens, surprise. And that was a big thing that I saw happen a lot with younger offers or officers and experienced officers where they would have a plan. We could get some kind of use of force situation. And I've seen it. I've seen people just stand there and freeze. Nothing happens. They don't pull a gun out. They
Mhm.
just or they don't go hands on with the person. And after everyone's pissed at them, getting their attitude, they feel less of a I'm pretty sure they're feeling how they feel about it is not good. And sometimes they end up even leaving their career of law enforcement. I'm pretty sure the same thing happens in the military. And I think the same thing I think if you even had a regular situation like a fight with your friends, and one of the friends doesn't even help the other friend, pretty feel very feel comfortable like going places with this person, knowing he's gonna help you, get your ass kicked or whatever, or not for you if you need it. I think it's very important to play that mental game with yourself. Well, what if this, what if that, and what if, and then you have at least an idea of what you want to do, so that you're
Yeah.
ready to act if necessary. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, and you're not going to have the perfect plan. But at least like I know right now in my house, like I always think about it, like at night, like hey, if I had something happen, I'm on the third story, I got to go down to the story, so I have to make sure if I have my gun or anything, it has to be up there with me. And have it on the first story, I'm on the third story. You know what I mean? So I have to have all that stuff, ready and placed in the right place, so that I can act, so that I'm ready when something does happen. It doesn't know
Mm.
to be like, hey, I live in a 3-story house, and my gun's on the first floor, and someone broke in, and I'm on the third floor. How am I gonna get? You know what I mean? Let me go right down to get my gun now.
Yeah, that's just lack of preparation right there, and,
Yeah.
I think that's significantly a part of the warrior mindset, because a warrior is not born to lose. He's born to fight and to win. And so we have to be mentally prepared for any situation. And like you said, you can't be prepared for everything. There things are going to go wrong. You can do everything right and you could still end up wrong. But
Yep.
that is where you at least gave yourself a direction to go towards. And then you can now be like, all right, that failed. I now have to think on my feet. So I'm going to divert this way and hope that it works out. And I'm just going to have to plan as I go. We'll move on to the next question. And what is an example of your warrior heart responding in a way that is not good? Is that a possible thing? Because I think being a warrior, it's one aspect of being a man. It is not your entire
Yeah.
being. There's also the teacher, the mentor, the father, the learning man. Um, all those things come together to form the whole, to be well rounded. Because if you're just a fighter, eventually you're going to be fighting with those around you who actually care and are your allies, your friends, your family, maybe some people, your close coworkers. And so I know one way for me at least where I my warrior spirit um probably went off in a bad way. I used to get into bad fights in a relationship that I was in, and in my mind, it no longer was, "Hey, it's me and you versus the problem." No, it's me versus you. You are the problem, and I wanted to just fight. That was not the correct way to approach that situation at all. Because like I mentioned, that's my ally, that's my significant other. Um, and blowing up on her, instead of saying, you know what, let's figure out what the issue is, let's see why I'm reacting the way I am, and let's see if we can fix it together, or if it's just my pride keeping me from being able to fix it. And usually it was my pride. So I think my warrior spirit um, was not used in a godly way during those fights. They were fights that didn't need to happen. um, do you have any examples within yourself, you think? Maybe at work, personal life?
I think if you like you said, if the as far as myself, I don't remember too many where I kind of like overreacted. I think, but it's just because there's no like through experience, like not to really be like that. But
Mhm.
me and this were talking about it actually today. He went to jail for and did 10 years. I might have him on the podcast sometime later. Me and him are always talking about kind of this. But, he went to jail for 10 years, and, me being in the military and law enforcement, but me and him always talk cool because we talk about the same thing. We kinda trip out on the younger kids, now that we see, not that they're doing anything, wrong or anything like that, but just kinda sometimes the way they kinda carry themselves, because He said it at the best way. He said, "What do you lead into a room with? Do you lead into a room with respect? Do you lead into a room that you want people to be able to scare you or think you're a tough guy and things like that?" So I think
Yeah.
that's where being a warrior could come off um, wrong way, where you kind of walk in thinking, like, "Hey, I'm Billy Badass, and everyone needs to do this," and and kind of carry yourself away. And I think people feed off of your energy, and then
Yeah.
they kind of react to that because everyone is gonna be, oh, okay, yeah, like this, like I've never been like that. One to me was always took as a compliment was that would always tell me like, you know, they act like a cop, like act how cops act, and I'm like, well, how do cops act? And they would always be like, well, there's the kind of like cocky and they're assholes. And
Yeah.
Lucy, I was always joking around, and I said, well, because I didn't grow up like that. I said I grew up. Well, if you came in with that attitude, you know, and in Oxnard, you're gonna get your ass kicked. Like someone's gonna beat your ass, or you're gonna get jumped. Like there's gonna be a consequence to it. You're not gonna be able to just do that. So even when I got into law enforcement, I never acted like that. And some
Mhm.
guys act like that. I saw their cops act like that, and they were never even respected their peers because what happens is that over time you start seeing that these guys are the ones causing all the issues. These are the guys that are overreacting in traffic stops,
Mm.
overreacting in encounters with people that are talking shit and being being petty when they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because like me and that guy talk about a lot. He's like, once you prove yourself enough times, you don't really need to prove it to people. You don't need to, you know what you're capable of doing,
Yeah.
and you know that internally your confidence loses shows it, and you don't need to be like, hey, I can do this. You just kind of are like, you're more trying to avoid the fight than look for a fight. I think
Yeah.
guys that haven't proven it themselves, it's to themselves. They're the ones that tend to start pushing that line. Like, I want to pick on people and bully people and do things like that. I think it shows a sign of weakness more than it does a warrior. It doesn't mean that that person can't be, redeemed and taught the right way. But initially, they come off like bullies, and they just like, and most of those guys when they actually run into someone else, um, who actually like that, and it's just not coming off that, then they lose the losing end of it. That's why I see all those videos on YouTube. Like, hey, when where bullies are getting their ass kicked and they
Yeah.
make the wrong. And that's kind of where I think the Warriors can go wrong. Like you, it's like you said, you shouldn't be the only part of you. One of the things I used to always tell people, whether it was in the army or law enforcement, I think why I'm so able to kind of, I guess, keep my personality intact and not fall into the culture so much is because I never made that 100% me. I was like, this is a job, this is a career, but I'm not gonna be so like, hey, I need to constantly be proving to myself and leading with that. Like me first. I'm John
Yeah.
first. I'm a dad first. Like, and me being the cop or being a cop, military or whatever was just part of me, but it's not everything that I am. So I think it's just being balanced and kind of, and that's where I think it could go wrong if you don't have a balance and you're just trying to constantly, boost your ego, show that you're tough. Then yeah, I think it's gonna blow up in your face sooner or later.
Yeah, not allowing your job or your hobby to become your identity. I think I saw that a lot in the military as well, where being military became their entire identity. Like, they would
Getting
lead off
tattoos of
with that. Yeah, like they had the boot haircut. They were just like they would
walking
try
around the
going.
mall.
Yeah, they would try walking around it like off base in their uniform, acting as if they were owed something, and I hated that. I think one of the most valuable lessons I ever learned from my boot camp instructor, his name was Technical Sergeant Gonzalez. I think he made Master Sergeant. Um, he would always hit on the quiet professional. Like he was constantly hitting on people should not um, see a bad example of a military member when they see you. You shouldn't be out there brash, boldly, like, yeah, I'm in the military, like, I'll fight anyone here type shit. Like, no, that doesn't work. And I took that to heart. So I rarely lead off that I was in the military. I hardly let off that I was uh, military when I was active duty. Um, and I would quietly ask like, "Hey, do you have a military discount maybe?" But for the most part, I kept things low key. I almost never mentioned it when I would go on first dates. When they would ask, I would simply just say like, I'm a weather forecaster." I would keep it at that, and then once we got to know each other a little bit more, I would know. Not that I was ashamed of being military. I didn't want them to think, because you probably know all the stereotypes that come with saying, "Oh, I'm military, I'm law enforcement, I'm a paramedic," type stuff. Anyone who's like a first responder,
I don't know, I'm a
they're
social worker.
yeah, like you come off with this stereotype now, as you're labeled with it, and I wanted them to get to know me, Nathan, who, yes, I'm in the military, but that's not my identity. Yes, I do this, and yes, I do that, but there's so much more to my entire being than just what I do.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and I agree with you. I saw it in the military a lot because you would have guys like they would be. I remember coming back from basic training, and I went to a party in Oxnard, and then some kid, I don't know who he was. My friends was the one throwing a party, but there was a kid there that I didn't know. And then he's like, "Oh, what branch of service are you?" And I was, "I'm on the army." And he was like, "Oh, I'm a Marine." Blah blah blah. He started like popping off. And then
yeah.
I was like, "Well, like, what's your job?" I'm like, because I was like, he was like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "I'm infantry." He was like, I'm like, "What do you do?" And he's like, "Well, I go basic training 6 months." And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you're like, what the fuck? Like, dude, you're not even gone through basic training yet.
Yeah,
Like,
buddy, go
so
sit down. You're not him.
yeah, yeah, that's I just laughed at him, and then that was like the end of the conversation. But yeah, it's like that's kind of what they're leading with. A lot of cops do it too. You know what I mean? When they first we took like
Yeah.
being bad heavy, um, and just being like very like I'm a cop and you need to respect me, and that's their only identity. That's how they get girls. That's how they do anything. And the thing is like, well, okay, well, I take that away from you. It gets taken away from you, or you leave. Where are you?
What are
And a
you?
lot of people, because to me, it's like, I said, it's funny because I actually made this comment because there was a guy, Hector Bravo, who's on Instagram and YouTube. He's a corrections officer, and he had posted a picture of his badge, his gun, and something else. And he was talking about, just something about once upon a time, like, which I know what he means. Is like, I was like what you carried even off duty. And I made the comment, that was like, the man makes the uniform don't make the man. And that was a thing, like, other cops liked, or on the comment or whatever. But it's true. It's like, I think people don't just respect the uniform because you're wearing it. I've seen a lot of, there's a lot of good cops and a lot of, but there's also bad cops. I always acknowledge that with people. There's cops to me that they don't carry themselves like cops. They're either out of shape, they disrespect people, they're lazy, and most of the time they're not even liked by the people within their own department. Most time they're, the only really word they're either cowards or the pussies, and they're proved it multiple times. And we don't want them around us as much as other people don't want them around. So to me, I've always acknowledged that and been like, hey, well, our organization, our department's not perfect. Nobody's department is perfect. I've never. It's like you said. It's always been something I've never liked. Me and this other guy I talk about it. Um, we go to the training with different departments, and sometimes you go. Everyone's very, not like their ego, but you're dealing with a lot of like alpha personalities. You know what I mean? So
Mm,
you'll meet guys that are cool, and you'll get along good, and you'll meet other people that they're not standoffish, but they're just themselves, and they kind of tell they don't give off a good energy. And to me, as have been in law enforcement so long, I kind of looked at that as weird, in the sense of like, if this is how you act on patrol, this is why people don't necessarily like us. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because if this is what you're doing with your coworkers, right? If this is what you're doing with your people that you're training with, and people that are gonna may potentially your backup one day, and this is how you carry yourself, and of course people don't like you. You know what I mean? Like, because this is how you walk in, like too busy. You're friendly. You don't have a nice demeanor. whatever, and you're leading off, and that's how you walk into the room with that attitude. People are not going to have
Yeah.
a good interaction with you. So, that's one of the areas of improvement that I always wish that um, law enforcement would get better at, and it does to a certain extent. It's like, yeah, we got to be warriors. We have to be ready to fight. We have to be ready to handle business. But you don't have to lead with that. You can lead. You can come in and be calm and cordial, be respectful, and
Yeah.
when it's time to do what you got to do, you do. But you don't walk in and you don't escalate it. But a lot of that comes from, let's say, fear or posturing or whatever, just things like that. Yeah.
I think I noticed it coming a lot from people with a lot of insecurity within their own lives. They aren't confident in who they are, so they have to make their identity what they do. And that's why whenever you see like the typical cop videos, it's always the ones like making trouble that seem like they don't know what they're doing, but they're just like freaking out about it. But and so they're demanding respect. And like I like how you said, do you lean into a room giving respect, or do you feel like you're being it's owed to you? Like you owe me respect because I'm law enforcement, because I'm military, or because I'm the biggest guy in the gym, or you uh, are you giving out that mutual respect? Like, hey, I might be better in some things, I might not be, but I'm going to still give you that mutual respect because that's what's right. Am
So
I
I think
making allies or am I making enemies?
as also, I don't think you know when you might run into that person again. The story I always tell people is about this is before I ever got into law enforcement, but when I worked with dad, when he was with for a produce company in Maranatol, and there was a guy there named Johnny Medina. And the reason
Mhm.
I bring it up is because when I worked there, I was a kid, probably like 14, 15. And they used to send me down the street to this like pallet yard where they had all these pallets and just extra stuff, like just extra crap. But the area that we're in wasn't always the best area, right? Like the train track behind it,
Yeah,
it was a lot of to a very gang kind of area. And so one day, like I was 14, so these guys come to the pallet, they're like 20s, they're probably in their 20s. They roll up like a little white pickup truck, and they're basically like, "Hey, we want pallets." And I'm like, "No, you can't have them." Because they wanted them, and I was just like, and I could tell, so like, oh, I would have to ask my dad, but I don't think he's gonna say, yeah. And then I could tell, like, well, we want these pallets, and so it's gonna, I don't think it was gonna happen. I could just tell as a kid, I'm like,
yeah,
they're gonna try to beat me up and just take them or something. And then right then and there, Johnny, walked into the pallet yard. He was an old school veterano, like basically older me, and but he worked with my dad. And so he seen me, he walked over there and basically checked those fools, told them to fucking bounce, and so they bounced. And so years later, when I'm working at the with the sheriff department, I'm working in jails, and I'm looking down into one of the sessions, and I see fucking Johnny. I see Johnny Medina. I'm like, what
yeah,
the fuck? So I go down there and I'm like, and I tap on the glass. I'm like, I'm Johnny. I'm like, Medina, come here. And then he's like, and I said, hey, what's up? It's me, it's Gordo. He's like, oh shit. And he was like, very like, hey, how you doing? I was like, man, how you doing? What happened? He's like, you don't know, bro. Just kind of messed up again, this that. But we had a conversation, and I think he told dad that he seen me in there, and he saw,
yeah,
hey, like Gordo, when he saw me there, he acknowledged me. Like I could have, he was like, I think he told dad something like he could have just ignored him. You know what I mean? And but I didn't, but I always remembered what he did, and that always kind of made like an impression on me to basically, hey, you don't know someone may help you. I remembered him helping me. Me being a little
mm,
kid, I remember it. So to me, I was like, those dudes would probably would have beaten me or jumped me or whatever. So I always remember that. So I always treated people with that same respect. I think if they were, gang members, they were, they're criminal, whatever the case may have been. I
yeah,
usually treat people, obviously with respect as long as they treated me with respect, and I always, kept that rapport with people, and I think that always helped me. I used to run into people, a lot of different times where I could have gave them a ticket or something could happen, and it played out another way. And I think I to me, I believe that I changed their impression of what police officers. Where I
Right.
remember another incident where a guy, I could tell he didn't really like cops or anything like that. And one day we responded to his house, and then the baby was choking. We were helping the baby get the fed fire over there, and they helped the baby get like if there was something going on. The baby was breathing right, and the mom was up and panicking. And every time I seen that dude after, he was like super friendly, came up, hey man, to appreciate this and that. And before, it wasn't like he was like hostile, but he just kind of fuck you guys. But now after that, like we're like he used to always come up because he realized like, yeah, we're here to help you. We're not, we're it doesn't matter. And like, I understand that. I said I have kids. That's what wants me. So I think that it goes a longer way than and I think that's why it's big to kind of understand like, hey, you may never know where you run into the person again and need their help. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
people don't even acknowledge them because they think that they're not gonna ever run into them again or this. But I think life's funny that and it will come back. You know what I mean? And it comes back sometimes it haunts you in a good or a bad way.
Yeah, respect can go a long way both ways, especially when you're in a position where you could abuse the power that you have. Like you said, you as a law enforcement cop, you could have abused your power probably at any point, but showing that mutual respect, it gives people uh, a new point of view of what cops are. It's like, okay, he's a good one. He showed me respect even with Johnny Medina. Dad tells stories about Johnny Medina all the time. And I remember him saying that, oh yeah, Johnny Medina has mentioned that he saw Gordo. He didn't tell me that though. And I didn't know that he had helped you out as a kid. But that's a good position to be in. Like even when someone's down on their luck, I know, look them in the eye. And I know I struggle with that still, especially when it comes to like a homeless person on the street. Like, yeah, I should show some respect because they are another fellow human being. But I think it's that stereotype where we hear like, oh, they're homeless, they must be a drug addict, or they must be this and that. So I think I've been working on that probably over the past year, trying not to do stuff like that and being more like, hey, I'm running into the store. Would you like anything? Are you hungry? I try not to give them money just because, it's not always the wisest thing to do, but I do try to work on that mutual respect and I work on that in my everyday life as well. Um,
Yeah,
we'll go ahead
and
and
not
we'll move
mean
on
it's kind of
to
I
the
think
next.
sometimes it's a hard.
No, no, no. Finish your thought on that.
I was gonna say, yeah, yeah, the homeless thing. That's all hard because it's like you said, the more homeless that are around, you're kind of how I give it. I can't give everything to everyone. I think it's like it's
Exactly.
bad because you're like, it's like, yeah, I'm the same way. I'll give you water or food or something to that extent. I'm not really trying to give you money or anything. It's just,
Yeah.
but yeah, I remember that being brought up one time in church, and I think that the idea was is like, what you choose to do with it is what you choose to do with it. That's not my job to like I give you $5 and you decide to get water or food with that. That's on you. I'm doing my you know what I mean? To
Yeah.
whatever to help you out as a fellow human being, but I can't babysit you and make you do right thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's
Because
kind of
you're an
like right.
adult.
Yeah.
Um, okay, well, we'll go on and move on to this one. This is a pretty long question. John states we could probably divide all guys into three categories: the guys who have no battle, the guys who are fighting the wrong battle, and the guys who know their true place in the battle. What category would you see yourself in now?
What's the first one?
So the first one is the guy who has no battle. The guy is chosen to deny his warrior spirit, and he is just that really nice guy, not making any waves.
And the second one is
The second guy is the one who's fighting the wrong battle. So is he fighting just to fight? Is he doing those examples of uh, using the warrior spirit in the wrong way? Um, is he Is he just not where he needs to be in life? Is he fighting the opposite direction than the way he needs to be going? And then the third guy, the guy who knows their place within the battlefield that he is in the war that he's waging.
I think to me, I think I'm in the third one 'cause I think just because I'm older and I kind of know where I'm at with it, I kind of know, yeah, it's like I know my place in the battle. I feel like I know my experience level is, I know what I can do. I think right now it's just basically like, hey, this is my like even this like even the whole good leader the whole podcasting and like that to me is like is part of it is, hey, we're trying to push this message out to men, be constructive as we can be, and to help other men and get them to, hey, these are conversations that you can have, not just on this platform but with people around you and things like that to be to become better. So I feel like that, like, you already know that's kind of my purpose is kind of using my experiences to kind of to help forward that way and kind of and so yeah, like I know what the battle is. I think the battle is like kind of you said in the very beginning. I said I have like have been told like, hey, you're toxic masculinity, and that there's not a place for you in this new kind of um, simpy
This new
society.
softer world.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I believe that right now we're going through hard times because we allow, weak men have kind of took over. So now, strong men have to come back. I feel like
Yeah.
that's what it is. I think that's what I mean by we're silent in that way because I think we're too, we're kind of busy doing our doing the things that we were doing, like whether it was in being in the military or being in law enforcement, being firefighter, being anything. You don't have to be a first responder, but those things, hardworking men that are doing construction or working we're so busy working that we kind of like focusing on that. In the
Yeah.
meantime, all these, I don't want to call them like perpetrators, but all these women kind of rose to certain positions while we were busy, providing for, our families and are doing our careers and all stuff. So now it's like, okay, now we have to kind of like focus back in and then kind of be like, okay, now we got to give, this a little bit more attention because we're kind of in a bad place. So now we can't just sit back and let it continue to kind of keep going on the road. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
honestly, like I think about the politics, right, of everything, and even I consider myself more, conservative, Republican, and because I would, is the way I look at it is like my beliefs being Christian, my beliefs dictate my views on politics. When I look at the Democrats and liberals, I don't hate them or anything or like them. I almost feel in the sense of they're almost like how you feel like I think like an older brother to like young to like if they're like my little brother or something in the sense of like where you kind of see them doing like hey, it's all right that you want to do your own thing, but now you're affecting more than yourself. You're affecting everyone else around you. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like and you're affecting and you're kind of you're like overstepping and it's like I keep hearing this thing where like it's politics are being divisive and it's dividing the country. I really think that what needs to happen is that in the election, I do think that the Republicans and everyone need to win to put it back into the right place in the economy. But I think we don't need to continue to beat on the Democrats and like wave or like, hey, we like like we won type of thing. I think what needs to happen is people that are still willing to listen to reason and that can have a common ground to bring them back into the fold and be like, hey, this is not a divisive thing. Like we can all come to some common ground, but you have to be open to listening to us as much as you want us to be listening to you and stop portraying, you know, um, being conservative and traditional and having certain values as somehow the devil, like and things like that. So that I really think it's up to them. It's like a relationship. It's like I don't think everyone will. I think the people that are super delusional, like they're not going to be open to that. But I think people that are in the, that are seen, I've seen it. I've seen a lot of people talking about just like they don't. It's almost like this is what I thought. If you are Catholic or Christian, and you're voting for liberal and democratic views, where does it say that and what you believe? Like, show them where it says that in the Bible and what church you go to, that any of that stuff for the most part is okay. And most of the time it does. You know what I mean? So I kind of feel like they're being steered the wrong way. They're getting played. Their emotions are getting kind of used against them. And I feel like hopefully after everything's kind of done, then they can kind of like come back to the fold, because I think everybody has their purpose. I think everyone has, I think there's, that maybe are not the physically the strongest or anything like that. They can also still bring their intelligence to the thing. Guys that are good with their hands doing construction can know that everyone has a thing that they can bring to the table. And um I think the two parties, it just because you disagree or whatever doesn't mean that you can't find common ground. I think what's driving the divide is more to me, I personally feel like there's a lot more. They're too emotional. Like I see it sometimes on my comments. It's crazy. Like when we do like our podcast, we're talk about this random stuff. Not that they're all negative or anything like that. It's just sometimes you just see people just want to argue. And I'm like, we're not making this podcast to argue. It's not a political debate podcast. You know what I mean? Like we're
Yeah.
just kind of talking about how how these things still apply from the Wild Heart book and leadership traits and things that are going on right now, and taking those good qualities and still utilizing them for today's men, and that we don't agree with the way men are being portrayed, the negativity that's being kind of pushed by the media to make it seem like, hey, men are bad, and the
Yeah.
traditional values are bad, and you having some kind of standards are bad, and it's not. If that was the case, what has been this the world been working the way it is for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's always been, men and women, and there's always been wars and things of that nature. But it's one of those things where like you can't um you can expect to make things better when there's no communication. When there's not a good amount of communication, and also not getting manipulated by wrong information and things like that. Because that is one of the things that I see a lot, and just a lot of miscommunication. But yeah, to answer it straightforward, it's like, yeah, I feel like I know my purpose. I know I guess my war sense. I think it's just like my words is to be like, hey, fighting to show that men that we do have value, we do care about our families, we care about the people that we love, we care about our country, we want things to be better. You know, having the having I think that you need to have some type of faith or something that you believe in. I believe in hope, like hope. I think I told you this before. I said hope was a beggar. I think Jim Carrey said it, and I always like that. Hope is a beggar, and faith is
Yeah.
fearless. And people, for us, I think we're people. Okay, like you said, you have to believe in something. You have to believe in whether it's Jesus or God, Christian or Catholic. You need to believe in something to have some kind of solid foundation
Yeah.
that's kind of prompting you to, go the right way. And if you don't, then you're kind of susceptible to fall or anything. I don't like the word spiritual. I'm spiritual. What does that mean? Like, what spiritual actually? Like, what is that? Like, what do you believe in? When people can't tell me what they believe in, then then that tells me you're just open to getting manipulated by people
Yeah.
that have your best interests at heart. You may run across a good person that will be honest with you and help steer you in the right direction. You may run across a person that's going to just manipulate you because you don't believe in anything. I think that's what kind of happens is. So I feel that's the war we're fighting now. The war to show like, hey, no, this is how we were made. This is how God made us. This is what's instilled in us. It's in our DNA to be the way that we are. So
Yeah.
but so you can't. I don't know. I just feel like that. It's kind of fighting to prove, hey, we still have value, and I think it's showing more and more when you see it in all these different aspects, whether it's politics, relationships, no dads in the household. One thing and a key factor is men. Not that men make everything better, but we're a key element of making the balance between women and men, and and making things right. Like without us there, then it's too much of the emotion, is too much of the woman stuff without the dad to balance it out. So that's what it is. We're fighting for our show, like, hey, this is our place and this is where we belong, and this is what we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, there have been studies, where it shows a single mother's household versus a father and a mother household, and the influence of the father is so strong that the kids, usually in the two parent household, they will grow up much better, less trouble with the law enforcement or anything like that. Less likely to get addicted to alcohol or drugs, while the single mother ones, they struggle. It's because they need that masculine energy, that firmness from a mentor, a good male leader. Um, that's what they're missing out on, unfortunately, and it's a shame that there's so many single mother households. And I believe that the media and our pop culture has made it almost like a thing to be proud of now. Oh, you're a single mother who doesn't need any man. And
Boss
granted,
bitch.
there there's strong women out there, but why would you want to constantly have the burden of raising the kid, providing for your family, when you could share that with someone who would have treated you well, a good godly man. And I like how you said that if people, they can't tell you what they believe in, then it leaves them so susceptible to being manipulated. And one of I've come across this quote just recently, probably within the past week. It's a quote by Christopher Hitchens. If you don't know, he was a very prominent atheist figure, constantly spoke out against Christianity. He was a journalist and an author. Um, so I don't exactly agree with him on his atheist point of views, and I certainly don't agree with his claims against Christianity. But he has this quote. It's called Hitchens' Razor, where it says, "What can be asserted without evidence can also be dismissed without evidence." And I think that is a very good quote, regardless of who he was as a person, because you often hear it in interviews whenever the left tries to say like, no, this is what it is, and it's like, okay, can you give proof though? And they can't. They get absolutely flabbergasted. They get incredibly upset with you. They let their emotional reaction take over, and then all they can say is you're a bigot, you're anti-immigration, you're anti-feminist, you're a
You're
racist.
white
All
supremacist
these
and you're Mexican.
Yeah, all these horrible things they'll put against you, but it's like, I'm asking for evidence and you can't back it up. And that's what my mentality has become now. If you cannot provide me with that evidence, I don't need to take your word on anything. Um, and granted, Christopher Hitchens did use this quote himself against Christianity, claiming that there's no evidence for it. But that's entirely wrong, because all creation serves as evidence of the power and the glory. And then moving on to our final question. Until now, have you considered spiritual warfare a major category for the battles that have come against you? Why or why not? So I'll go ahead and I'll start this one off first. Yes, I consider spiritual battles to be a very prominent thing that comes against me quite often. Um, so I grew up in the church. Our mom came to Christ about near the time I was born, and so I grew up in the church my entire life up until I was about 18 or 19. That's where I effectively left the church, spiritually and mentally. And then when I left to the military, I stopped going to church altogether. Um, and I noticed that during those times, I was just going through some incredibly rough periods of my life, whether it be mentally, dealing with depression, anxiety, um, or mentally. Medically, my body started taking a toll. from some of the things that I was doing. Nothing illegal or crazy, just normal wear and tear, but it seemed to be affecting me hard. Um, and so it wasn't until maybe about last year where I found myself in the fetal position at 1 in the morning, just in severe pain, where I cried out to God and I told him, Lord, I need you in my life. I am desperate right now. I know I haven't talked to you in a long time, and I know it's not great to try to make deals with God, but I begged him. I said, Lord, if you could just figure out what's going on with me, uh, because I had been going through it at 2 years at that point. I promise I will go back to church. I will do whatever you want me to do. And so I did. Um, I went to the emergency room that night. They were able to figure out what was going on with me, and within a month, I had started to feel better. Um, and so I recognized at that moment, like I need to make good on my promise to God. I need to fulfill and be a man of my word. And so I did. I started going to church as soon as I was able to. And and I'm not saying that my spiritual battles have gotten any better, but oh, it feels so much better to know that God is on my side, and things that I cannot handle, things that I cannot do on my own, I just have to hand them over to Him, because I am incapable of fighting my own spiritual battles, because it's a plane where I have no power except for the power of prayer, that God will please find favor in him, in me, as a believer in him, as a, using my faith as righteousness according to him. And yeah, and I've noticed that my spiritual battles, and they used to be so um just so heavy on my soul, to the point where it's heavy on my mind and my body. um, they have now become lighter, because I've recognized that I can't carry them on my own, so I cast them off onto the one who can. So I would say yes, spiritual battles, uh, they play a significant role in the war that I fight in my life, and I praise God that He truly loves and takes care of me for that. Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that yeah, anytime I think you will be, tested at certain points in your life. And there like I wouldn't say where I ever felt like I was being, I would say directly attacked, but I felt like yeah, like there was a certain point, in my law enforcement career, I felt like I was surrounded by people that were I'm gonna say that there's no really nice way to say it. I felt like they were just had no sense of honor or not even loyalty, there's no sense of honor. Weren't the type of people I wanted to be around. I had people that I were certain people I was close to, but as you move up through the ranks, yeah, I there was a point where I was like, it's kind of weird as a career wise, I was successful, but they always say it's only at the top. That's what I kind of felt like. Like as more I went up the ranks, you start seeing people's, I would say, jealousy. You start seeing their envy of you. People can't. What I noticed, because like yeah, I'm always a pretty straightforward person. I think people that weren't able to physically attack me would try to then attack me in other ways. So a lot of this, and it was going on. It was one of those things where I felt like I was weird, like a kind of, if it did feel a sense of like, what's kind of going on. I remember talking to even mom about it. Mom always said that she's like, you're, being kind of spiritually attacked. I always had the mindset of, like if I'm being attacked to like, to fight back. It was more of a way of the people that were this. It it was weird because I couldn't do things to the way, like, as a regular guy, I have other guys, you know, shipping whatever. then I could address it. In an environment, in a work environment like that, you're kind of at the, um, you're kind of, not that your hands are kind of tied in the way, like, to deal with some of the people, because anything you do, especially how I felt, was because I was the stronger, more well person. Anything that I did was more look. I almost felt like I was like basically, you get kind of I think, you're losing both ways. If you do anything, it looks like you're bullying them or doing something to them, but you're also expected to kind of these people that are, to me, kind of, acting with their own personal motives. You're supposed to just like, oh, act like it's all right. Didn't really like that part of it, because me, those people, like, I knew if it was just a man thing, yeah, these guys were straight trash. Like, there was no contesting what was gonna happen to them, and I think they knew that. So I think a lot of it I felt was like, I a lot of the snakes were coming out, a lot of the people was jealous, and it was just a lot of jealousy. This is the way I told people. I said, um, I was majority, I would say 99% got along with most people in my organization and department until I got promoted. And once I got promoted, I saw the biggest switch I've ever seen. People's just like personalities and intentions and what they were, because and it was just like it was weird to me, because the ones that stay solid, they stay solid, and I still will talk with them or have any some type of like, cordials. But the other ones to me were just, it was like, it was crazy. It's a lot of, I would say, vindictiveness, trying to tear, not just towards me, but just towards people in general. That was their way of doing. I saw that a lot, and that's why, that's why I chose to um to effectively kind of, it kind of changed my whole thought process with law enforcement, because it was no longer like, what would they the same. We weren't. It's not. You're not helping people at that point. It's like, kind of like, felt like almost like people were kind of deep. I would say. I don't know what it was, honestly. I don't really know. Just it seemed very ill intent, tear people down, not just myself, but also people. And the depths and the things that they're willing to do were just crazy. Like, it was just like people did, like, so I have that empathy for Trump, for what he's going through, and kind of like where I've seen people will care, like, and you see that people don't care what the truth is or anything. They're just trying to tear you down one way or the other. And
Mhm.
the thing, you have to look at it kind of in a certain way. Like, people try to tear strong people down. They're not going to tear weak people down. So when you're a strong person, people are going to try to tear you down whatever way possible. They can't do it physically, because most of the time in my experience, they're mostly pussies. So they're gonna they can't directly confront you, so they're gonna do it in sneaky ways. And that's the way what I saw. And so I remember having the conversation with mom, and she was like, yeah, she said, I think, you're being attacked. And my mindset all the time was, sometimes, when you're facing obstacles, it's something, you're in the right place because you're seeing these obstacles going in the right direction. Then my
Mhm.
mom posed the question to me, like, well, sometimes you're seeing obstacles because you're not in the right place. Like, maybe that's not where you're supposed to be. So after a certain amount of time, which was like a couple years, I did start feeling like that. Like, actually, what am I really accomplishing? Being here and doing it, and that's kind of changed my mindset about the thing. It's like, oh, I don't want to be, um, surrounded by people I don't trust, don't like their the political games and things like that. And a lot of it, like, it like kind of a spiritual type of thing, because like, these people are, to me, I would say evil, like these, like, but it almost felt like that. They didn't have no good. They didn't have redeemable qualities. Like, they weren't honorable. They were um, they did not act like men. They conducted themselves like in ways that, to me, I would call them cowards. Even today, if I was in them, I'd be like, you're a coward, bro. Like, you is coward. So I kind of saw it in that way where where yeah, it felt like it was a period of time where that was kind of going on. I would say for about 2+ years, something like that. And I never felt like it changed me. It just more where I would just like it made me um I don't know, kind of made me rethink my position on how to deal with things like that because you know I got to the point where I'm like, what am I really trying to prove um to continue kind of fighting this fight and doing these things when you have people that are like this. I think I just lost the desire to want to interact with people like that, to be around people like that.
Mhm.
And that's ultimately what kind of push a lot of my decision for not wanting to be so much involved in law enforcement and things like that. I didn't like the direction. I'm like, it was going anymore. I'm like, if this is the direction we're going, where everything is political, which is, I mean, I'd have been told that earlier in my career. I remember a sergeant told me that he said, if you rise above a sergeant, it's all politics, and it is all politics. It's
Yeah.
all politics. It's all backstabbing. It's all people telling you one thing but thinking another. You meet good people, right? You'll meet some other good leaders that will help you, but the majority of them are out for themselves. They're very two-faced. They're not going to always tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
They're going to try to be covering CYA, covering their own ass every chance they get. They'll celebrate with you when you with your victories, and they'll pretend they don't know you when you're losing. Like that's you know what I mean? And so I just didn't want to be you know involved in any of that. And I think that really where I saw, like, man, this is really like these are like bad. That's kind of how I felt. Like literally, like some bad people. These people are not good people. They're not honorable people. They know how to carry themselves in the correct way. But some of them, that's how I felt about them. Like I didn't. It's I didn't no longer want to be involved with my. I saw, I think it was Tulsi Gabbard was talking about that with the Democratic Party. Like it's sometimes when you see some of the things going on behind the scenes, you're like what? Like you're kind of you would think at a higher leadership level that some of these people would have they would be more would act different. They would act accordingly, or they would, have these hard conversations with you if there's an issue. But they don't. A lot of them are still very cowardly, very political. It's a lot of uh, picking and choosing what they choose to go after and what they choose to do. And a lot of them are incompetent, honestly.
Yeah.
That's what I saw. A lot of them are incompetent, and they make their careers off the backs of people that actually know what they're doing, and they just take credit. So, I think it just opened my eyes to that, where I was like, yeah, these people, like, there's no way to tell they believe, like, these are not good people. And some of them, from what I would hear, like, oh, this goes to church. I'm like, how do you go to church? How do you do these things and act like this at work? You know what I mean? And act
Yeah,
like
you can't do that.
there's yeah, you're portraying, you're portraying it. And so I'm never under no false you know what is it, perception that everyone cop is a good cop and everybody in the military is a good person and everyone that goes to church, they're not. I've seen it myself. So I always tell people you need to judge people by their actions and not just by their words. And also I think you can judge people more at the lengths they're willing to what they do to other people. I think um if you're willing to go to extreme lengths to destroy other people and do other things to other people, like there's something inherently wrong with you. I mean, so I've been wrong by other people. I'm just like, hey, it is what it is. If we have to deal with it in some kind of a man way, like arguing or a fight, whatever it is, it is. But I'm not gonna go out of my way to to like I'm gonna destroy this person's life or do anything like. But some of these people, what I saw that there is no limits for cowards. Cowards have no limits to what they will
How low
and
they'll
won't
stoop.
do. Yeah, if they'll go as low as they need to, and that's just the way they operate, that's the way they do. I had that, that's what I saw. I mean, that's like, I look with, like, when I see a lot of the stuff on social media with some of this, the pure hatred that people have for, like, um, for Trump, and that's crazy. Like, not just him, but anyone that's a Republican, anyone, like, some of the things that they say are just insane. Like, you guys are evil. I hope, like, you die. And your kids, this.
Yeah, they make
It's
it incredibly personal, and the
yeah.
attacks that they make, they sound vicious, where I don't I'm on the same boat with you. I don't like the Democratic Party, but I would never see myself, like, cheering for the death of any one of them.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I don't like Kamala Harris. I don't like Biden. I don't like Newsom. But never have I felt the need to go on to social media and be like, "Oh, I hope this person goes to jail, or if this person gets assassinated, or anything like that."
Yeah,
Like, the fact that these people would do that doesn't mean there's something mentally wrong with them. Like, it is. That's a, but also it's like you're doing that over social media. People don't agree with me, but I can tell you from seeing it in real life and fights, whether it was in high school, the army, law enforcement, most people are not like that in person. That's why you always see those things where, you see these people from Antifa acting crazy, and someone runs up and beats the shit out of them because in groups, people, you know what I mean? I think cowards are always more, um, they're always, they feel a little bit more, not, I want to say brave because they're brave, but they act a way in crowds. They act a certain way over social media. They act a certain way, like you were mentioning with the with a lot of the rules that are instilled nowadays, um,
they're like
in the
hyenas,
world.
they'll pick off a lone target when they're in groups, but alone they're
But yeah,
weak.
they are opportunists, and that's one of the things I didn't respect that. And then I so seeing that and kind of experience, it just made me realize, like, people are not really happy for the people that love you are happy for your success. The people that are, jealous of you, their your success is just, something, is like a constant reminder of their shortcomings, and a lot of times they're gonna to make themselves feel better by trying to tear you down, because they can't ever do what you did, and they're also, instead of learning, instead of, like, this guy used to talk about it, me and one of the other, um, top people in my department. We used to look at guys that were leaders and say, "Well, dang, what can I do to be like him? How can I learn to be a better leader? Like, how did he get to that position? And
Mhm.
what made them to be a better leader?" What we saw was that a lot of people were like, seeing that position in me. Why don't I have that? You know what I mean? More of this, and that was kind of, and I've ran into some of these people, like, outside of work, and it's funny, they are cowards, put their head down, they don't they don't even make eye contact with me, you know what I mean? And things
Yeah.
like that, and that tells me right there, that's all I need to know, and that's the kinda coming back to the whole lawyer thing. I know what I could do to them right there in that moment, but I don't, because to me, it's like the fact that they walk, or they have that cowardly energy, and they, like, put their head down, and it's like, where's all that bravado? Where's all that heart at? Where's all that, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Not there, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's not even
just
worth the trouble of the fight itself. You've already won.
because to me, it's like you're a coward forever. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it. Yeah, I look at it as like, you're cowardly forever. Nothing's gonna change the fact that you're a coward. You know what I mean? Like, when and you're never going to, unless you really change your life. You're gonna always feel like that, and sooner or later, I've seen it. Everyone gets theirs, and it's more of a, I think, like I said, with the warrior thing, more times it's like holding back on what you could actually do to these guys and things like that. Because I used to tell guys that all the time. The guy that especially that were, big mouths and stuff like that I work with, that is like, hey, train 7 days a week. I say you can go there, and they would never show up. So it's like, and that wasn't even trying to be like a tough guy. It was just more like, if you feel that much that you want to do something, the opportunity is there, but they're never going to take it because they're too busy typing on keyboards, telling on everybody. You know what I mean? So, It was just one of those things that's what I saw. So yeah, I think that's kind of that spiritual warfare because something's driving those people to act the way they do, and I don't think it's something good. I don't think it's that comes from like God or Jesus or the church to say, hey, tear everyone down because at the end of the day, everyone's imperfect and everyone can make mistakes. And I've had me and this other guy, we talked about the same thing where it's like we've had people that we didn't like, and I've had the opportunity a lot of times in my career to get people in trouble for a variety of things. And if it could be handled at a low level, that's where I handled it. I never, whether I like them or not, because I was never that person to be like, let me shit on your life or let me shit on your career just because I could. So those people, I don't have any respect for them. That's it. So I don't think anything's gonna that's why I always tell people about the man makes the uniform don't make the man. And
Yeah.
I told the guy before, I remember early in the career, I told the guy this came with it was for cops. I'm like, a piece of shit with a badge is still a piece of shit. Like it doesn't matter what your job is. Like you're that type of person, you're still a piece of shit. You know what I mean? And I remember he didn't have a response for it. So hey, it is what it is.
No, I 100% agree with you on that. That was I like getting your point of view on these sorts of things because that is a spiritual battle because it's what's weighing you down internally. Yeah, it can affect the heart, it can affect the mind, and it can affect the body, but it's the soul where it's really dragging it down because the soul provides the heart with the motivation that it needs. So yeah, that's all I have in regards to the Wild at Heart study that we're going through right now. Is there anything you'd like to end as we close out?
Yeah, I'll just do the outro real quick, and then we'll go. Yeah, then we'll end right there. Let me see. Boo, boo, boo. So the outro is men rest. We are made in the image of the greatest warrior of all, and the battles that we face are not just a part of life; they are life itself. Through these struggles, we find our strength and our purpose and our true self. So as you go into this week, face the fight, live with the warrior's heart. And remember, it's not just about the battles you win or lose; it's about the warrior you become in the process. So until next time, stay strong and keep fighting the good fight. And that is the Good Leader Day service. Nathan, anything else before we close out?
No, I would encourage everyone who's listening to this podcast right now, reclaim your warrior spirit. Don't be afraid to fight. Be strong and courageous. We are commanded that in the Bible. So go forward. Find the battle that you need to be in, the one that's worth fighting. If you have not accepted the warrior spirit within you, I encourage you to do that and choose to fight. Choose to fight for things of a just and worthy cause. Your country, your faith, your family, yourself, and those who cannot fight for themselves. That's all I have for closing out.
Okay. Make sure you like, you comment, you subscribe, support the podcast. Remember, we're not just doing this for ourselves. Um, it's not always I don't think it'd be easy for anyone to just say, hey, let me talk about my life experiences and things like that are and being as personal as we get into it. So we appreciate any support. That's it. Have a good Sunday, and we will talk to you next week.